righty, we are back in the Delinea booth in our content studio, and I've been doing a couple of these recordings this week, but this is the one I'm most jazzed about. I have an old colleague and friend from my days when I first started working in IT audit at GTE, Mignona Cote here with us. She happens to be the CISO Delinea customer, and thank you for being a customer, but we have so much to catch up on. We haven't seen each other face to face in who knows how long.
30 years.
30 years, I think. And our careers started off in audit, and we've gone down different paths, and now we both still end up here at RSA because we love information security, cybersecurity. I'm a big believer our audit background actually fundamentally helps with the roles you've had now. You've been a CISO now, what, 6 different companies over the years, and fascinating stuff to keep track of. So we're going to dive into some different topics, but first off, I'd be remiss if I didn't say congratulations. You just won another award for women in cybersecurity. So I think back at our time at GTE, there was a lot of women on the audit staff, but the InfoSec teams we were working with, they wasn't in cybersecurity back then. There wasn't many females. So tell me about the evolution and your excitement to see where that profession has come up from, and certainly the respect you have and the recognition is important, but what you've seen from a women perspective growing into the cybersecurity field.
Yeah, so first of all, it was a big transition. Starting off at GTE, we believed that the world would operate the way it did at GTE.
Yeah.
So we're largely populated with women, and we used to audit security. We called it information security. Or,
Jim McConnell's organization, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
yes.
logical security.
Yeah, it was logical security.
Logical security.
Well, that's such a good. Of course, it's.
No, I still have those GTE control books.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I got the blue
supposed to be logical.
GTO control
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And we used to have to CBTs, computer-based training, go out at a shared, clunky plastic computer.
Yeah.
So move into technology. So I went into Nortel Networks after GTE, and it was easy. It was still heavy populated by women, and there I became what would be, I'd call it the equivalent of a CISO, head of security engineering. SQL Slammer came, and that's actually what made a security team. Companies did not have incident response teams. We created what's called rapid response at that point. But fast forwarding all through the technology in different companies. So I worked in banking 9 years, healthcare a few years, AWS. So I went through the high tech route. And when you move upward, there's less people, and then there are more guys. And to be frank, I mean, you might want to edit this out, but I never went and smoked cigars and drank expensive whiskey. But I tried to have one last night. It didn't work out for me.
Well, you did see Arnold Schwarzenegger, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
So it's a trade-off.
Were you there?
I was not there, but I saw what you put on Facebook.
Oh, okay. But what I've learned is to just be passionate about asking questions and learning. Part of security has been security people saying you can't do this, you've got to do that, whatever. But what we learned in the audit profession that made us very good is we learned to ask questions and learn from others and embrace the different groups of what we're learning from. What I've learned is not all auditors are that way either. Some still follow a checklist and they don't really understand the content. We were very fortunate being put on projects like our client server project and really digging into the technological changes that influence the world where we are. Remember GTE Mail?
Oh, yeah. Holy cow.
GTE Mail to be able to communicate because they didn't have an internet.
Right, Micronesia telephone. So that's great. I know Delinea for us, executive leadership from a female perspective is important. We won some awards as well, but just looking back at what you've done in 30 years, especially the recognition from your colleagues and top women in cybersecurity, that's awesome. So, and I'm a firm believer too, like you said, the audit background. Not only we know the right questions to ask, we're not afraid to ask them to all levels of the organization. I'm sure that helped you a lot as you moved up and fought through was a traditionally male-dominated role as CISO. And that logical security thing, I remember those days greatly when we called it part of the audit program, logical security. So back then we're auditing a lot of business applications, and GT was moving to SAP. I forget what our accounting system was before that. It was something else on the mainframe. But anyways, I've been talking a lot lately at events the last couple of years about if I'm a CISO or CIO, depending on who owns security in the organization enterprise-wide. If the board of directors or the private owners of my company come to me and ask me questions, they expect me to know answers about everything going on in security, including logical security around your line of business critical applications, your accounting system, your CRM system, your HCM system. lot of times CISOs are thought about, well, they just worry about the external threats. And then we have these internal threats because we still trust our employees, right? Even though we know they could have too much access to the accounting system. We're not doing periodic reviews. You have access to the CRM system. Perhaps you have conflicts between assignments of entitlements, segregation duty conflicts. I can create a vendor and process payments to a vendor in an ERP. How do you look at it as a CISO when it comes to that internal threats and mitigating them, knowing that if an over-provisioned account in your accounting system is compromised, they can do some damage too, just like a threat actor on the outside?
So good news is our background elevated me and separated me from the thought process that you just thought of. A lot of security people come up through network engineering, and from there they stay kind of around the infrastructure layer. When you start looking at the application layer or how the business operates, I've always gravitated towards that. I've always like, what about the transactions? What about the way that does? So what was good at Bank of America, I was in charge of what was called consumer security. So this is home loans, credit cards, the banking centers, the business and how the business operated. It suited me well because I worked for the business and secured the business.
You're a partner.
And I got funding.
Oh, there you go.
The business has more funding than your IT organization.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
I'll give you an example. We had a group of people needed to get on the phone calls at the call center, and they could not get on the calls because they couldn't get their access provisioned. So we had 60 people that needed to be on the phone answering calls, and when you answer calls at a bank, it could be because someone's died, they needed money, or there's a desperate moment. One of the leaders called me, and we created what's called auto provisioning, and we created a role to 58 different applications, 1,000 entitlements. Because I came from telecom and large companies, that wasn't a big deal. Now you get into these smaller companies, that's a big deal. And so it is very important as a CISO to know how the overarching world is secured. And in that internal fraud, Bank of America, I created a program called Associate Defalcation. Who can see and do what in the network, ACH fraud. You learn a lot from your call center people because they hear the phone calls, they know how people steal money.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, that audit background we have, I think, is paramount to what we're both doing today, and it's great to hear that you're considering the line of business applications, because I think that's, a lot of times it's siloed or it's a gap. And when executives talk about the risk, they're worried about all the external threats. And I like to talk about true enterprise security, and it's mitigating internal and external threats. And oh, by the way, you need to have visibility into all your applications and where all the data resides. Remember way back when we were doing client server and data governance exercises to try to figure out where all the data was at that was going to map into client server applications. Sort of the same things happen today with data governance. It's just a different set of technologies when you're mapping who could have access to what.
And they call it classification. We were doing data owners and data classification at GTE. And I found a book 2004 called Data Security from 2004 on my bookshelf. And I was like, we're reinventing the wheel. And so I started trying to dissect why we keep reinventing, and each group believes they're coming up with the same concept. And we have all of this stuff. We did it. And it didn't work. So data classification, I was like, we've been trying to remove Social Security numbers out of systems for years, and now I'm still using Social Security numbers to get into things.
Oh yeah. No, it's cyclic a lot. The new technologies, AI obviously is all over the floor here, but a lot of the approaches are being used. We can learn from past things we've done, governance-wise and otherwise. So really cool to hear about you talking about, at least you personally, think about those business applications, because I know we've struggled with that with some of the executives we work with. How about, we talk about AI, obviously it's everywhere here at the show. It's a new shiny ball, but we accomplished client server, new technology. We accomplished Y2K, new technology problem. We accomplished bring your own device, I would argue GDPR. We figured out how to handle that. What's your thoughts on AI here? Is it a lot of folks think it's doomsday. I think it's an opportunity because we can use AI to secure AI, and we can mitigate some of the threat actors with really cool AI stuff our own side. But how do you see it as a CISO, and what AI is the challenge, but maybe the opportunity as well?
So I see it more lined up with you, and I think we went through this when cell phones came out. They thought you can't use a cell phone for work.
Connect up our corporate network.
And it's like, no, you've got to find a way to embrace it and make it work. And we don't know what threats are going to be there. I presented Monday, like they go, well, this is the OWASP top 10. And I was like,
OWASP top 10 guy for secure coding.
That's going to change. We don't know what's going to happen. You're going to know what happens when it happens. And so we will get to a mature environment. We're not there yet because every day we wake up, we hear a new vocabulary word, and we want to foster that creativity.
Yeah.
So my general thought is, you look at the traffic and you look for what's called too good to be true. If you see a lot of rapid transactions, it's too good for that transaction to be posted to a journal ledger that quickly. But we did that with DDoS attacks.
Yeah.
So we've gone through that methodology before, just under different languages. I don't want people to say, oh, well, they've got all the answers. We don't have all the answers just because you and I are old now. But we've gone through a lot, and we have the thought processes on what to look for, on what doesn't feel right.
I mean, it still boils down to, and I speak a lot as like you do, I put on my auditor hat still, risk-based approach. Let's identify, let's inventory, let's figure out what all's out there. All right, get that visibility. And now in the AI world, visible to all those AI agents. What do they provision have access to? What data can they get to? And now we can develop a plan on how to approach that. And not every risk is the same. Not every AI agent's the same. I've been saying for a long time now, eat an elephant one bite at a time. Crawl, walk, run. Pick your riskiest areas, whether it's a business application, cloud infrastructure, whatever you might determine as it relates to your business, and that's where you start to invest with tools and technology, and then you work down the list. We didn't audit every single department every time.
Well, Frank, think of it this way. GTE was buying up all these small telecom companies. Every one of them had their own suite of systems. And each one of those suite of systems had their own set lines of code. And each one of those line of codes did something. We didn't go and look at every line of code and did all that, but I do have to tell you, I still can't get over this one guy asking me to read a program, a COBOL program, to see if it did data scrambling for E911. And I remember I called you, I was like, I can't say his name on the camera, but because what happened was an EMS truck went to a different address in California, and GTE got sued. So he goes, can you find the data scrambler routine in the program? And I was like, thank God I took COBOL and could read it. That was the first code review I ever did, and the only one.
The only one. Well, there's very few people who know COBOL what it is. When I grew up, we went to school and learned it. Now there's all these banking systems, I think, running COBOL behind the scenes.
So we've got job security.
And we do. And a bunch of developers that are retired, they're bringing back. Okay, so to wrap it up here, I think, we're one final thought on talk about AI. Again, in the business applications. So if you look at SAP or, Infor, obviously a business software company. I'm sure you guys, folks probably have agents running your software now to make the AP clerk's job easier, to make the payroll manager's job easier, or maybe it's someone that's using some CRM functionality, make their job easier there. I don't hear a lot of people on this floor for sure talking about these AI agents that are inside business applications, your core critical line of business applications. Any thoughts about that? Because I think this is almost a set of agents that no one's thinking about, because Jane and AP Clerk could turn 3 or 4 of them on, and now we don't know exactly what they're doing. They're under Jane's control, if you will. I think it's a little bit of a blind spot right now. How do you see that?
I don't think it's that way, because we have so many different code evaluation tools. Like I was just meeting with a guy from Indoor Labs the other day on what they evaluate, and so they're evaluating agents and what they do. And so the other thing that benefits is that I am seeing in the development community a strong knowledge, more than I have, on security now. Just not the traditional way that some of our people think. I don't think that way. But I want to go back to this audit thing. A lot of people don't like auditors, just so you know. So we've got to up-level the...
I know. We lived it. We have the scars.
But no. Indoor Labs has come up with there's some really great software tools that are doing the complete shift left, looking at it, and it's kind of like when you use Grammarly. You use Grammarly, it catches a misspelled word, but every once in a while you still have it red, underlined, you can't figure out what's going on.
No, that's awesome, because I think it's visibility and then looking into it. And again, secure by design, secure by default, whatever term you want to use. If we build the agents correctly to begin with, inherently they should be more secure. But again, we all know it's not a one-time exercise. You still need continuous monitoring and review of what they're doing. And again, the only way to keep up with all this is some use of AI as well, because it's
going to take just one time. If we believe that no one's going to make a mistake, then we're wrong. There will be a mistake in a person. There will be a mistake in an agent. So we've got to be prepared for it.
Absolutely. So that's a good way to wrap up, my friend. It's been such a pleasure. So good to see you. It's been way too long. I know we were talking beforehand about some of the old GT days and different people and the like. that was some of the best times of probably the best time of my career. I was a young player.
Yeah.
I learned a lot, so we had a blast, but we learned a lot. And to see where we've gone in 30 years, you especially, holy cow,
well,
it's
in
awesome.
Carmel, Indiana,
Yes.
who could believe you could stay at a hotel, a balcony overlooking the water, and then go to work? That was amazing.
Yeah, that was my first office.
Yeah.
In Carmel, Indiana, at the Meridian Mark I building. So anyway, thank you for your time. Hope you're having a great rest of the time at RSAC. Thank you for being joining customers well. More importantly, thank you for being a longtime friend and business colleague.
Well, I'm excited to do that. Let's not wait 30 more years.
We're not going to do that. I know that for sure. So awesome. Good deal.
Okay,
Well, enjoy the rest of your time. Thank you, Mignona.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.